want to talk about stress testing a server to evaluate performance from that standpoint, because many times when we are thinking about website performance, we're looking at either front end performance, or if we're really doing our diligence, we might be looking at back end, like page generation time, how does object caching and OP cache and things like that, how are all these things impacting the page load speed, especially in a dynamic site where everything can't be cached on the edge. And those are great things to look at too. But you're still oftentimes, you have a live site running, and then you have a staging site on a new host that you may be evaluating, and you're usually not really looking at the full picture, which is how much load can this server support. So that's where load testing or stress testing comes in, is to look at what happens when we throw not just one visit through the site and look at how fast it responds to my requests as I load the page, but actually what happens when we throw hundreds or thousands of visits at it over a short period of time. So that's what we're going to look at here today. And what you are seeing here on your screen is loader.io, just a easy tool to use for setting up load tests. K6 is another great option, an open source option, but you have to know a little bit of code to set that one up. We've got our site in the bottom left corner here. This is just a blank WordPress install with WooCommerce added on to give us some dynamic page loads that we know are going to hit PHP and actually incur some processing cost. And then we have a look at our server stats here on the right side. The one we're most concerned about here is the CPU section. And you'll see the two cores, C1 and C2 is the two cores that are available to this server at the moment. So we are in our test configuration. We're actually going to simulate visits to a couple of different pages. Now, if you were setting something like this up, you don't necessarily have to follow a real world path like this, but it feels good to me to say, okay, somebody might visit the home page, then they might go to your shop, then they would find a product there and visit the product details page, then they would add that product to their cart, and finally they would visit their cart and then go on to checkout. Let's change that to HTTPS. So that's what we're looking at as far as the flow. There are, each site is going to be unique as far as what you might want to test here, but the idea is to get some kind of a flow here that's going to involve some dynamic pages that are, and specifically here, we're adding to the cart and then visiting the cart. Those are pages. Once we hit this point here, we're going to get cookied, and everything we do after that will not be cached as far as the static page cache. So let's run this and see what happens. We're going to go with just one visitor per minute is going to start their journey through these pages. Run this test, and you're going to see here some numbers for response times. This is basically taking all of these URLs. How long does it take to go through all of these? Add that up, and we'll see the response times here. The minimum time that it takes, the max time. And you'll notice if you look over here on the right as this is happening, we've got our CPU kicking up just a tiny bit. It's not being taxed very hard at all as these visitors go through. And the response times here, unless you're testing between two different hosts, so if you're setting up this test on two different hosts and running it, then it's something I would pay attention to. But for our purposes here, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. I'm just using it to show you how some of the changes that we might make can impact this. So this is finishing up, and while that's happening, I'm going to go in and I'm going to just do a quick experiment. The purpose here is not to talk about performance optimization, but I do want to show you quickly. If we turn off the object cache and we turn off the page cache, so now everything is going to be generated from scratch and be pulled from the database, and we should see this number go up quite a bit. So let's run this again. And now you see our CPU is spiking a little bit higher. It's still not being maxed out by any means, but it is running a little over double what it was before. And page load times aren't looking terrible still. I may have needed to clear the cache. Those first couple of pages may not be hitting. It may already be cached. All right, I'm going to clear this, and I may splice out the video here. There's no need to watch the end of this test. All right, we're running this again after we've cleared the cache, just to be sure. Okay, it's still not as high as I thought they were going to jump, but yeah, you could definitely see the difference between the caching on and off, just in that visual graph there. All right, let's abort this one again, and I'm going to turn caching. Let's just leave it off. We saw what I did with it off. We will edit this test configuration to try and max out the CPU a little bit. Let's go 360. So now instead of 1 customer per second, we're going to send 6. And if that's enough, then we should see the requests start to spike, the time to start to spike on these as the requests kind of pile up. You can see, yeah, the CPU is really getting hammered. And if we hit it hard enough, we'll start to see some timeouts. Not sure if we're at that point or not. There we go, yeah. So we've saturated this at 360 over 1 minute. So again, that's over 60 seconds. So we're sending 6 visitors into this flow. They're not all getting out. They're taking upwards of 15 seconds, 17 seconds before it was seeing them completed. But yeah, we've hit the error threshold. We're stopping this test because nothing is going to happen beyond that point. So let's take a look now at resizing this server. Okay, we are now up and running here with 4 CPU, and I haven't changed anything about the test configuration. So let's just run this again and see how this new set of CPU handles 6 visitors a second now. And this is like literally on the same machine. We've just resized the number of cores that are available to it. So we are not talking about any differences in CPU speed or memory or disk or anything like that. Network, it's all on the same physical machine as it was before. And now you can see we're still running decently hot with this type of a load, but we are nowhere near maxing it out. You can see our page request times, our cumulative request response times are pretty low, if not similar to they were, before we ramped up the test. So this was the last one that failed on the two CPU. So this is a great way, because if I ran those on the 2 configurations that you just saw, if I just visited the site or even ran some kind of a test to see how does the CPU perform, things like that, it would have come up almost identical between the 2 scenarios. But now that we have some load actually being thrown at things, we can really see the difference and understand a little bit better what is our server going to do, how's the site going to respond, and what are things going to look like if we have a flash sale in an e-commerce example like this, or if we have a bunch of students or members logging in for a live stream. We can kind of see at max capacity where are we going to go with this, and what we would typically do to ensure that we are able to support any unforeseen spikes in load would be to have some kind of a factor of safety on top of what we anticipate. So if we anticipate 100 people logging in at one time over maybe the course of a minute, we would want to make sure we size that server to support 2 or 3 or 400 people at a time, just in case, for one thing, to give you a little bit of room for growth, but also to give you some room to absorb things that you may not expect or see on a normal day-to-day basis. So that's a kind of a quick and dirty look at load testing and how we approach it here at MemberHost. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to shoot us a message, and we will get those answered. And we're always happy to run a load test like this for you too in your staging environments. So just let us know what we can do, and we'll be happy to take a look. Thanks.